So I'm here this morning with Marina Pearson, and just before we hit the record button, Marina was telling me that she's been up with her son from, what was it, midnight until 5 this morning?
About that,
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, Mom was here. She took care of him until 2:30, and then it was just I can't. As a mum, you know this, right? I can't sleep when he's crying, so I just kind of came down to see if I could help. But yeah, he didn't settle until 5.
Ooh. We've just, sorry, this is such a tangent, but we've just, my 2.5-year-old has just had the side taken off her cart, which she was, eagerly anticipating because it meant she was a big girl and she could get up herself to go to the toilet in the night and stuff. But it's such a classic example of what you anticipate you'll feel is no predictor of your actual experience, because actually she was totally freaked out and unsettled and awake a lot of the night herself, just because she wasn't used to having the imaginary security of that fourth side on her cart. But anyway, to start the interview, I'm here with Marina Pearson. Now, for anybody who doesn't know Marina, Marina's a mum to her son Leah, an international best-selling author. You've been invited to speak on TEDEX and Awesomeness Fest, and I know you've been on ITV this morning because I saw you on there.
Oh God!
And over the past few years, you've been sharing the understanding behind what you describe as effortless living, which is kind of working less, stressing less, and earning more to create a business that's aligned with you, basically. And there's a couple of reasons I'm so glad to have you on here. And I know we first talked about a year ago, and we're finally doing it now. But I think I'll probably go on to this secondly, but the whole idea of effortless living is really, really interesting to me. And I think it's something that I know in the past, and I think probably many other people will perceive it as a kind of lovely ideal, but not really possible. So I'd love to talk more about that kind of thing. But the other thing, and the thing I'd like to start with, is that you didn't just kind of walk into this beautiful 3-day-a-week working lifestyle, living in Spain and with your ideal clients and all that kind of thing. You had like years of doing it the hard way. Is that fair? That's fair to say, isn't it? And
Really, 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 really fair to say. Yeah.
I know it says, yeah. I know it says on your website that you invested over £60,000 in your business and never saw a penny back from it. And, and I see this with, it mirrors, not on the same scale, but it mirrors my experience to a certain degree. And I think loads of other people that you kind of go on all the kind of courses and you hope that it'll give you the missing thing. But all that seems to happen is you earn more money, you spend more money, and it doesn't deliver you what you're looking for. So I'd really love to kind of hear your story of that, and then, what was the insight that changed everything?
So yeah, kind of rewind back to about 3 years ago, I suppose. I just finished my book. It was Goodbye, Mr. X, and that's the kind of area I was working in at the time. But up until that point, I'd been on a bit of an exploration, and the exploration had been kind of starting out with I started out with musicians and their creativity, and if they were stuck, that would be an area that I would really want to work with them. And then I went into relationships, and I was like, no, this isn't my thing. Then I went into saying goodbye to Mr. X, and after a period of time, I realized that I was just banging my head against a brick wall. That as much as I really loved the content of it all, and I knew a lot about relationships, it just wasn't working. I was running around really, really busy, and was working like, I don't know, 60-hour days, and I was really stressed, and I would go to London and have all these meetings and come out again, and nothing was happening. And while the book was written, and while I was able to coach a few people, the crux of it all is that I wasn't earning enough to sort of make a living out of it. Basically, it was kind of like a hobby. But this had been going on for years. I started out coaching back in 2010, 11, and really fell in love with it and knew that this is exactly what I wanted to do. And I'd gone to all the courses, and I'd spent all the money, and I was definitely a seminar junkie. And while I was transforming, it didn't seem that commercially that was really translating in my business. So I got lots of PR for the book. I got lots of really great comments. It's managed to sell really well, but I didn't actually get really any clients from this. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I remember one day, like back in February, 2 years ago now, and seeing a quote, and it was something about stopping the search, and it really hit me. I was like, oh, what's that? Because I was ready to pack it all in. Every day I was like to my husband, I don't want to do this anymore. He's like, well, then don't. I'm like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. But I carried on. I was kind of in this pattern of doing. And it talked about stopping the search, and it really resonated for me. I kind of, something in what they were saying that really, really resonated for me. And I realized that I'd been searching, but there was a part of me that really understood that there was a truth. It's my friend and husband going out. Just in case you were wondering who those people were. And yeah, I was constantly searching outside of myself for the answers, to look to the gurus, to give me the formula, as it were. And it almost like didn't matter, because I kept spending the money in the formula and it just wasn't happening. So I was impacted by that quote, and I can't even remember who it was, where it was. I was on Facebook, but and it wasn't like I sat there and went, oh. It was literally, I looked at it and then I carried on with my day, but something had changed. And then there's actually Jamie did a really great campaign with this book, Jamie Smart, and I got curious about that book, because, by the way, at this point I actually wanted to stop personal development. I was done. I was really done with it all. I was kind of on a bit of a anti-personal development tirade of, I'm not going to do this anymore, I'm done, I've spent all this money, it doesn't bloody well work, la la la. And it was really interesting what happened. I got curious about this book, and I got curious about it, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not supposed to be curious about anything personal development-y anymore. Oh God, I'm going to spend money with this guy, I don't want to. And I just kind of ignored it. And I remember I was at the airport flying to the States with my husband at the time. And I tiptoed into WH Smith's, and I was like, is anybody looking? Because it was me that I was judging myself against. And I bought the book. And even
asked them to put it in a brown paper bag.
Yeah, totally. Did anybody see? It wasn't until and then Jamie was doing he was doing a competition, and the competition was funny pictures with book and that. So anyway, I got really engrossed in this whole thing, and I in Heathrow they have these big statues of, well, statues, just big paintings of the Beefeater, saying goodbye London, and I was wearing a Russian hat at the time, so I got up on this railing and I put the book in the big hand and I said, I salute clarity. And I was like, what am I doing? I haven't even read the book. I didn't even know who this was. But I'm already really this thing. And it was, I read the book and I'm like, there are no how-tos in this book. Like, this is a rubbish book. And then a couple of weeks later, I was at a training with one of my mentors, and he creates games for entrepreneurs, and you learn through the games. And one of the things that I was doing was I was working in a team, and I was really lost, very much like I was outside of the training room, really lost, didn't know what I was doing, and basically decided to join forces with somebody else because I was so insecure about what I was supposed to be doing. He sold us out. So basically he he took over and started dominating the conversation. He didn't give me any kind of decision making. He would poo-poo everything I said. And it suddenly dawned on me, oh my God, this is what I do out of the training room. When I don't know what I'm doing, I just give my power away. And oh my God, he doesn't know what he's doing either. Oh my God, it's all made up. And that was a really profound shift for me, because I had been running around thinking that everybody else had the answer, only to realize that actually that wasn't true, that everybody else was making up as they went along as well, even though they might have thought that this is actually what's working for them. And then so as time went by, I started to have more and more insights into this whole thing of running a business. And the other insight I had was I did actually have the answers, and there wasn't just one formula for anybody. So I realized that by going to these seminars that I was looking for a formula that would work for me. But as time went by, I realized that the only formula that was ever going to work for me was my formula, my way of doing things, my insights, my way of listening to my wisdom as it went. So while there were some really cool things out there, I realized I didn't have to take them on. I could just use them as and when it made sense to me. And that started to change a lot of the things that I was doing. And of course, in the end, I ended up signing up to the program, and the rest is kind of history. But over time, I got to see so many things that I believed just weren't true. But one of the real biggies for me was that I actually had the answers, because I had forgotten that. I'd really thought that other people had the answers and I didn't. So I kept on giving my power away to all of these experts and thinking that I didn't have what it took to really build a business because it hadn't really happened. And it was during that year that things really started to change. I decided that I wasn't going to do the Goodbye Mr. X anymore. It really dawned on me that the most of the people that I was hanging out with were women and entrepreneurial women. And I was like, wow. Because the one thing I really wanted to do was to create a business that would really light me up. But I'd been working hard and I'd been working long and I'd been putting all the hours in. But I hadn't really thought about what is it that I want to create and what would I love to create as a result of me running a business, and what are the ingredients that I would love to include in that. One of the things was live events, and the crazy thing was that a Goodbye Mr. X event just wasn't didn't cut the mustard. Like, these women didn't want to come to an event. And I'm like, what am I doing then? Like, what is it that why am I creating this when I don't, when really what I want to be doing is live events? And so in the end, I kind of had an epiphany, and the epiphany was I really wanted to work with stressed out entrepreneurs, and namely women in business and also mothers in business. And although I do serve men, the people that seem to be attracted to what I do are mainly women. And I kind of just left that open, and I wanted to see who and what would show up, but mainly women at this point. And so I transitioned, and I remember the first event that I ran called Your Pathway to Wisdom. Like, it was years, like, wanting people to show up to one of my events, and suddenly I had 22 women in a room, and I'm like, wow, that to me was such a breakthrough, and it was such an emotional moment, because I was like, wow, I never thought that the day would come when this actually was a reality for me. And it was really impactful, because I started to see that through this journey of personal development, while it had been really useful, I could start to really see the tangible results happening outside of me, and like effortlessly. And while I had to build a landing page and create a video and set up the system, I had 22 women in that room, and while the beauty of this was for me to see that I wasn't actually attached to the numbers, whereas in the past I was really attached to the numbers. I was really attached to what it had to look like. Like, if it wasn't this, then I'd feel really disappointed. But I got to see that I just wanted to serve, and I wanted to serve the hell out of the women that would come to these events. And it was in that sort of period that I had an insight about moving to Barley. I had a call to go to live somewhere else other than the UK at that time. And typical, right? So things start to work, and I decide to leave. And I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I'm going to make it up anyway. But I knew that my husband and I needed to go to Barley. I just knew. It was just, and I've been there before. Anyway, so at the time, Your Pathway to Wisdom event was the event that I was running, and I didn't know where that was going to go. I kind of thought, well, if I'm going to Bali, then it's a retreat.
Do you mind if I just jump in for a second? Because I absolutely love that. And I loved the whole thing you said, and you kind of like expressed it so beautifully, that transition from looking outside of yourself for how to do it, which is essentially the same as telling yourself that you don't know how to do it, to starting to realize that the only answers that are ever going to do you any good are the ones you've got. And so I was just curious, when you said you knew you had to move to Barley, was that something, because to me that learning to follow your own guidance, it wasn't something that I found, or in certain areas of my life, it wasn't something I found particularly easy to hear. And it's almost been like using a muscle or something in certain contexts where I've tended to devolve responsibility and look to other people or other templates or other experts or whatever. So I just wondered, that kind of knowing about moving to Barley, is that the sort of thing that you've always been able to hear, or was that something new as a result of you starting to listen to yourself instead of looking outside? Or
yeah, it was very new to me. It was really new, and But yet, when I say that, I look back at my life and I'm like, no, it wasn't you. I just didn't know it was that.
Yeah.
There were things in my past that, like, I suffered a lot of depression in the past, and I went through a divorce, and I realized that there were decisions that I made during that period that was about me listening to me, but I just never saw it that way. So I went to see a doctor about the depression I had, and he said, I want you to be on these antidepressants. And I was like, no. But I took them anyway, and I said, I'll be back in 6 weeks' time, but I won't be on these. And he's like, well, then, no, you have to be. And I'm like, no, I won't be, but I'll take them now. And so I took them for about a couple of days, and I'm like, no, this isn't right. I don't need this. And 6 weeks later, I go back, and he's like, wow, you look so much better. And I said, I haven't taken them. I just knew. And even years before that, even when in that moment, really hit rock bottom, when I was about 21, I decided I just wanted to end it. There was still that voice inside of me that got me out of that bed that day and dragged me down the stairs and told my friend that I'd just taken a bunch of sleeping pills and that I needed to go to the hospital. That voice has actually been with me throughout my life, but I just never recognized it as wisdom. I've never recognized it as what it is. And it was only having an insight into that I realized that that's what it was.
Yeah.
Even in like the most darkest moments of my life, even when I had to go to the hospital that day and admit myself because I was really worried that I was going to do something to myself, that voice sobered me up and just said, get the hell out of here and make sure the doctor knows you're okay so that he can let you out. That voice has been with me the entire time. I just never recognized it. And that's the same for everybody. That's the same for everybody. And that's something that I had never been told.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. And I just think I'm kind of glad we stopped and talked about it because I think it's so key to this whole thing to do with, building a business that's doing something that's meaningful to us, because I think we've all got, if we stop and think about it, we've all had periods, or we've all got areas of our life where we're able to listen to ourselves. And then quite often when it comes to this, making a business happen, creating a business, there's just all this noise. And so we start looking outside of us for, direction and how to do it and how has somebody else done it, and not realizing that how somebody else has done it has been the product of their process of wisdom playing out and their mistakes and their discoveries and their insights and their ahas. And while there's a load of useful stuff in that, you can't completely reverse engineer it to create your own path to your business. It's just not the way it works.
Yeah, and this insight I had about going to Barley was when we were there. Actually, my husband had a job he was doing for a week, and I decided to go with him. And I was in meditation. I was just meditating. I don't usually meditate, by the way. It was just that I was doing a 3-day thing, and I really fancied doing it. And it was really interesting. Just before I came out for meditation, I was given a vision. The vision was Barley, and I had a date. And it was, January of 2014. I'm like, what the hell's that? Like, I really didn't understand what that message was. And it was a couple of days later that I realized that that I was going to go, whether my husband was coming with me or not, I was going. And he decided to come with me too. And then January of 2014, we conceived our son Leo. So I don't know, we've been attempting to have a child for years, and literally we got there a week later, boom, done, you know, job done. Little Leo was conceived. And as that time went by, over that year, it was so transformational because I had to stop. I didn't have to, but I decided to. I remember one of the insights I had, or what I heard, was sit and receive, Marina, sit and receive. And I'd gone
say again, sorry, Marina, I didn't catch that.
Receive. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, sit and receive? No, you get up and do. That's as far as that was the paradigm I was living, getting up and doing. But I took myself to Barley, and I realized that I was living the London life in Barley. I was working really hard. I was not switching off. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was just, I moved to Barley to have a bit of a different life. And about 6 weeks in, when I got pregnant, I got really sick, and I had to actually stop completely. And I didn't want to do any of the things that I'd kind of thought I did. And what seemed important didn't seem important anymore. And what seemed more important for me was to just rest. So I rested. I rested for about 2 months. That period was really important to me because that was when the question showed up about effortless living. Is it possible to live effortlessly? Is it possible to have a business and still have a lifestyle that really lights you up, but it kind of seems effortless because you're in that flow? So that was the question that for the last, well, that showed up for me then, and is constantly in the back of my mind. And over that period of time, I had a really big question mark because I was running events back in the UK, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to do this, right? Like, I'm pregnant, I'm in bed, I've got no feet in the ground in the UK. How am I supposed to do this? But I did it anyway. And that was when I realized something. I filled the room, like I had another 22 women back in the room again. And while it wasn't just, oh, well, it was done, that had taken years to cultivate and nurture. But it was effortless. I sent a few emails out. I asked a few friends to see if they would like to come along. I asked friends of friends. And all the while I was lying in bed feeling really ill. And I had a few insights about that, and I realized that there's a time to sow seeds, and there's a time to let the seeds grow, and there's a time to harvest the seeds. But what I've been doing is attempting to harvest all the time. Like, money, 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 come, 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 grow, 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 quick, quick, quick. And I'd not really kind of seen the benefits of that, and then realizing that actually there was a rhythm. There was my rhythm. And my rhythm is slow, it's not fast. But I've been running this fast race that I'd made up in my head about how it has supposed to be. And with that, kind of everything started to unfold. So everything had been unfolding up until that point, but I just really got in touch with that, what could work for me. I was living in Barley, and so that had limitations as well as it had, its possibilities. Like, I had to create something online, I wanted to, but I also wanted to run the events, and so is it possible? It is possible to live effortlessly, and I don't know about you, Emma, but when I see my son Leo exploring, seeing things new again, and he's like pure consciousness, right? This ball of nowness. It hasn't gone anywhere for us. Like, that's still innate in us. It's not like it's gone somewhere. That's disappeared. It's still there. And when we get in touch with that, when we get out of our habitual thinking, that's effortlessness right there. It's not about not doing anything. Like, it's not about hanging out and not doing anything. It's about taking action, but about really being in that flow more of the time. I say more of the time because it's not like ta-da, you've arrived. It's a constant evolution. So I'm much more in that space more of the time these days than I was before. That's not to say that struggle and stress doesn't show up, because it does.
And it's about being okay with being in and out of it, but also recognizing that that's you being in and out of it. It's not the world being like this and then the world being like that. It's you being in and out of flow. And sometimes yeah.
Because physically we're always in flow. Spiritually we're always in flow. It's just we kind of get caught up in our heads and we think we're out of flow, but actually it's just that creation of out of flow in our heads.
Yeah, it's so true. And I just wanted to sort of say one little thing before you kind of move on a little bit. But the things that take us out of that flow can be anything at all, can't they? They can be whatever shape our kind of thinking is taking. But I liked what you said about money. And so for you, a realization was realizing that you were trying to harvest because of a kind of urgency about money. And something really similar happened for me in that I've heard a few times and I found it useful to realize, the whole thing that money's neutral and we all have a lot of thinking about money that looks really real to us. And that one of the kind of potential challenges we face is that we've all been schooled to earn a living by the hour or, by the week or by the month. So the idea of earning money while you sleep or different ways of making money is quite alien to a lot of us. But for me, that schooling and getting paid by the hour or the month or whatever, it worked the other way in that when I started, I wasn't willing to sew because I would get a sense of tension about the number of unpaid hours I'd put into something. And so while in some ways I was willing to do it, I'd get this kind of anxiety about, I've spent X amount of time on this project and I don't really know where I'm going and I don't know if it's going to reap anything at the end. And I would get this tension about I should be earning now. And it wasn't until that fell away that I was able to follow my nose and do something because I thought there was something in it and I felt interest and I felt called to explore it. And the only thing that stopped me enjoying that in the past was a load of thinking I had about what it should be, what I should be getting from it immediately. And so I loved when you said about watching your children, because being in flow doesn't mean sitting there and waiting for things to come to them. It's just that they're not attached to the outcome. So if you see them in a playground or a sand pit or playing with water or whatever, it's literally just, oh, what will happen if I do this to that? I wonder what will happen there. And it's just a big process of experimenting and following their interest and intuition. And, you know, we can't be like that all the time, but we can recognize that when we're not like that, the stuff that's getting in our way isn't real. It's just a distraction, really.
Yeah, and you know, it's a constant pace of learning and acceptance. So for me, you know, now I've got the Effortless Lifestyle program, and there are people on it. You know, that's like a really big deal for me. It's like, wow. But you know, there are moments where it looks like my experience comes from the fact that somebody might want to not be part of that anymore, or it looks like my experience comes from the fact that, you know, it felt good for somebody and now it doesn't. And like and so this understanding really makes it so much easier for us to be in service to somebody else, because as far as I can tell, biggest leverage point that we have as a coach is to remain grounded and to remain curious and to not take things personally, because they aren't. They're really not, because that person's resistance says nothing about you or what you're offering. It says everything about their resistance. And I know it's really difficult to see sometimes. Like for me, like a couple of days ago, it looked really real. And then I realized, no, it's their resistance. And while I can learn something from this and take on what I've heard, their resistance says nothing about me, because that's not my responsibility. And this whole thing around abundance and making money is a really big part of the lifestyle, because you want to live a lifestyle, right? Like, but it's an inner lifestyle. It's not just exterior. Like, I have my stressy days as well as anybody. I live in this beautiful place in Spain, but that's irrelevant to my experience, because I still have stress whether I am living here or not, regardless. So I just spend less time there now. Like in the past, I would spend a lot more time there, like a couple of days. But usually it comes and goes more quickly these days. So we can spend more time in that place of effortless living as opposed to in the stressful living. And I think, you know, words like work hard, play hard, and no pain, no gain, and you must motivate yourself, and all of these things get banded around, but so we buy into them, right? We buy into, especially our generation, I think, because I don't know about you, Emma, but I had parents who were very much of that generation, of that ilk, that you have to work hard. And while work is, while I'm not saying it's not about not working, what I'm saying is our relationship to our work can really change. So it doesn't have to be hard. It can be effortless, even if you're putting in the hours.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't put in the hours. It's not like you don't do anything. It's just the relationship to what you're doing changes. So that for me is what effortless living is really about. It's changing the relationship that we have to our work, our clients, money, relationships. It's like cleaning up the misunderstanding that we have about what creates our experience. And there are areas I really don't see it so clearly yet. But I know that those areas will get cleaned up, the feather duster of insight will come along and
yeah.
thought web that is still there.
I know for me, I was brought up to, you know, that was just one of my lenses that I didn't actually see until I was in my 30s. I was brought up, I was schooled that life's hard, life's a struggle. So, you know, without really realising it, I felt like some kind of traitor if I wasn't experiencing it that way. You know,
yeah.
I made sure it was hard. Never take the direct, easy route to something if there was a really difficult, onerous route instead. But
like, what is that? Like, my own worst enemies. I must go up the hill backwards.
Yeah.
Somehow that's
as if you're, you know, work shy or lazy or something. If you find a more efficient way of doing things, or, you know, I was in my previous career, I was the micromanager who thought the people who left on time, who thought the people who were, you know, at my level, the other kind of managers and directors and stuff, I thought they were kind of the ones who were able to trust their team and let their team do their jobs. I thought they were just lazy, shirking delegators, you know. So I made sure I'd never have it easy.
I'm so glad I wasn't managed by you.
You'd have had an easy ride though, because I'd have been doing everything.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, I totally hear that, and it's like the majority of us live. You know, I was talking to a client of mine, and we were talking about what's your zone of effortlessness, like what's your easy. And it's kind of like we've come to see that easy is cheating. Like, really? Can I do that? That's like really easy to me. It's like, oh, I'm cheating. That's like really naughty of me to do. It's not hard.
I'm laughing, but this is so true, and I just think it's really, I'm glad it came up.
Yeah, no, but I totally resonate with this, because this is like me up until 3 years ago. I'm like, God, how did I function in the world? Like, so my husband and I came back from Hawaii a couple of days ago, and I get very complacent about time. I'm a bit like lost in the clouds with regards to like needing to be somewhere on time. And it's not something that I don't find very particularly easy. I'm a bit lax about getting myself organized if I'm catching something. Anyway, I learnt my lesson this time. So we arrived early. We decided to get the train back here because we wanted to see Leo. And I was doing something with my phone. I was sorting out my bank balance. My husband's like, Marina, we've got to go. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Just meet me at the platform. So he rushes off. 15 minutes. And I'm literally like, I get to the gate. I've got about 10 minutes now. I'm looking for the email. I can't find it. And I suddenly I can feel the thought storm rearing its ugly head, and suddenly I'm in this complete thought storm, turbulence everywhere. Where's my husband? Oh, I can't find the email. Where are you? I'm on the platform. Well, you need to come back. I need you to tell me where the email is. Can you send it to me again? No, I can't. I don't know where it is. And we were both really caught up in this huge thought storm. So in the end, he's like, well, what do you want me to do? Because I couldn't find it. Oh, you just go and see Leo, and I'll have to get the next train. And anyway, so I have to go to customer service. By this point, Mark's left. He's on the train, and I'm like, whoa. I was really angry. And I get to the client services, and I'm like in tears by this point. I'm like, I just want to see my son. I want to get home. I'm like, oh. And I'm like, I can't find the emails. I've lost all the. Anyway, I calm down, and I look for the emails again, and all 3 show up. And I'm like, but I just looked for them. What's that about? And I just thought to myself, how the hell did I used to function in the world? Like, because that was me constantly. How did I used to function? I guess I used to function, but that was just functioning, coping, not really thriving. Or having any time for joy.
Yeah, me too.
So it was an interesting realization for me. I was like, wow, how did I even like make it this far?
It's brilliant, isn't it? It's good to have these reminders. That's what I always think once they're over with.
Once they're over.
I have a newfound gratitude every time that I'm not like that more of the time. I just want to touch on one thing that when we spoke briefly before, I loved what you said, and it's the same thing, but it's kind of I suppose a bit more of a tangible or pragmatic take on it. And it really struck me when you said it last time about, and I think the example you gave was of a client or a potential client who was talking to you who wanted to create such and such and such a thing so that they could then have the lifestyle they want. And so it was about the idea of the separation of, I want this kind of business so I can have this kind of lifestyle, as opposed to being, is this ringing any bells at all, or making sense to you?
Yeah. So it's really easy for us to get caught up in what the business is supposed to look like. So we, online courses bounded around, and well, I can earn the money from that, and then I can go on holiday and do the things I love to do. But as a coach, we can create the business that we want based on what we love to do. So, like, I don't see any separation. I love what I do, but I don't see any separation now between what I do and work. Like, I love what I do. So, I just asked her a really simple question, which was, what do you love to do? Oh, I love to go to spas and have lunches and hang out with my son. And I'm like, well, why don't you include that into your offering? And she was like, oh. And we've been attempting to find out what the package looked like for a while. And it just wasn't flowing, wasn't happening. I'm like, no, we need to stop here, because she just wasn't into it. And then the next day we came back, she came to an intensive, and she came back and she was like, oh, I could do that. And it completely, from that moment on, we just unpacked her entire business. It went boom, 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 boom. Here we go, done. And we were done. Like, literally, it just took one day, a couple of hours, and she'd unpacked the entire thing. She knew exactly what she was going to give. She knew exactly how she was going to deliver it, what the names were, the videos that she needed to create. It just all got unpacked because it came from that place of joy and inspiration and heartfelt desire, and this is what really works for me, as opposed to what I think I should be doing. So it was just a really simple question: what do you love to do, and why don't you include that into what you do, into what you love, into your coaching package? And for me, one of the things I just love bringing people here to Spain, and there's a beautiful ocean view just outside of the window here, and there's a swimming pool, and in the summertime I'd love them to come here and just take it in. I love looking after people, so bringing them here and giving them green juices and getting them to just take a little bit of time out really nurtures my soul. So, and when we go for a beautiful walk or something else that they like to do, but it's something that I look forward to. It's not something that I have to do. And while there are things in the business that I do that I don't necessarily think are my zone of genius, effortlessness, I'm realizing more and more that just because it doesn't look that way doesn't mean I can't do them. Doesn't mean I need to buy into what my thinking is telling me about the thing that I'm doing. So yeah, that you can create your business any way you want. it's all made up anyway. So create something that really lights you up. Create something that, you know, you can infuse your clients with the same enthusiasm as you have for what you love to do. And in the way that you love to do it. So I kind of now come to this place where the ideal is 3 days a week, 4 days a week that I work, and then 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's it. Like Leo's here, and although I have a few calls in the evening, it's not the crazy 16-hour work week, the work day I used to have. And I make sure I have some time for me during the week as well, because that place of self-care and nurture is so easy to forget about when you have a kid, right? When you have children, it's like you give and give. But so really designing it in the way that you feel inspired to design it.
Yeah. And we forget that giving ourselves space, whatever that is for us, that's where all the juice comes from. And I loved so much what you said there. The idea of doing something that lights you up, and that lights you up now, because otherwise it's just another I'll be happy when, or another getting something out of the way so you can enjoy yourself. And if that's your pattern, you'll never get to the bit where you're at the bit that's lighting you up, or you're at the bit where you're enjoying yourself, or you're at the bit where you're rewarding yourself or taking a break or whatever, because there's only now and the way you be in it now. And if you're thinking about, well, what would I find fun or inspiring or would light me up now, then that's what's going to attract clients to you anyway, because they want you to be inspired by them.
Yeah, and I guess they want to see that you embody what you preach, or what you're talking about. And while, as I said, you know, they say you teach what you need to learn. So it was interesting, because I'm like, well, what would I love to learn more about? Effortless living. Well, that sounds like right up my alley. Like I want to learn more about that. I want to sit in my sandbox of effortless living and experiment with this. I want to see where it takes me. I have no idea where it might take me, but it resonates. It's my sandbox of blue sky thinking, of what is this thing called effortless living, and is it possible? And what are the ingredients for that? And I'm learning all the time about this. Like, it's not something that I know that's it, because I don't know when the next insight will come, at what point it will come, what more I'll learn about this. So I'm constantly learning new things from this sandbox called effortless living, my sandpit, where I get to explore and create new things. So that's also a really important part to this. It's not a fixed thing. You can always be expanding into something new. You can always see something new into what you're doing, and it's the unfolding of that allows for the flow to carry on and carry through. You can always change your mind, and it's okay to change your mind. I've changed my mind many times. It's when we judge the changing of mind that now that becomes an issue.
It's a really good point, actually. Don't wait till you know what to do, and don't wait till you know enough, because, as you say, there's no fixed point to get to, and actually it's the keeping learning and the not knowing that's part of the fun of it all.
It is, and the exploration is a really good part of this, because I'm constantly seeing something new. So, you know, I've just added another event called Your Pathway to Success to the events that I had, and now I have 4. But it started with Your Pathway to Wisdom, and then it was like, oh, abundance. Like, you know, effortless living is about abundance too. Okay, success. Well, there's something about that. There's something about redefining success, that you're not constantly in searching for it, that can really do something for you. And then finally love, which is all about self and other. So they've just evolved. They've just sort of manifested themselves. It's kind of like those 4 things are kind of my, you know, success, love, wisdom, and abundance. Kind of, I don't know it just made sense.
Yeah.
But now I'm creating something new. I'm creating something called Ignite Your Soul series. It just came to me the other night, and I'm like, yeah, I really like that. I want to just rap about things on audio, and I'm creating a Facebook just for that. That I just share my audios with women that want to be part of that group, and videos and whatever else occurs to me in the moment. But it's constantly evolving. It's a constant creation of things that kind of make sense to you at the time. And what once made sense maybe doesn't make sense anymore, and that's okay. That's okay too. In fact, that's a really important part of this, is to know that what once made sense to you to do may not make sense anymore, and that you can change that. Like when Leo was, he used to sleep with us in bed, and that made sense up until the 6 months, and then it stopped making sense. It just really did for me personally. I really needed my sleep, so we got him in a cot, and then he's now in his room in his cot. But that was a transition. But it went from cot in the room, which made sense, and then it didn't make sense anymore. So there was a constant unraveling of what made sense.
And I think it's part of the way we work as human beings to want to fix things, isn't it? And make something that's just transient, that's changing, into something that's fixed, and not revisit it and not let it change and let it flow and stuff. I suppose it's about staying curious again.
Yeah, it really is. And it's to just really embrace the experimentation of it, and sitting in your sandpit and just
get dirty, get messy.
Messy, yeah. But one final thing I want to say is that when we're realizing that we're only ever searching for a feeling, and we realize the feeling can't come from anything external to us, we can actually experiment without attachment, because we know that the feeling doesn't come from the outcome. It can never come from the outcome. It can never come from your results. It can never come from even from what you're doing. And that really did a lot for me. This truth that we're looking for a feeling. We're not looking for anything tangible. We're just looking for a feeling, and we think that the feeling comes from what we have. But by realizing that the feeling isn't about what we have, but about who we are, that can really do something for you, because it allows you to really stop searching and become more present and experiment without the attachment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's it in a beautiful nutshell. That seems a really good point to draw to a close. How can people find out about your events and the other programs you're offering and what you're up to? What's the best way?
So there's on my website, there's an ebook that they can download called the 5 Keys to Effortless Living. That's completely free. I also have a site where it's a 14-day effortless lifestyle experience, and it's really about talking about lifestyle and business to kickstart you into effortless lifestyle. It says it's for mamas in business, but really it can be for women as well. And that's on marinapearson.com/14-day effortless experience. And that's just, as I said, a video into your inbox every day, sharing my insights about business and about money and about all that sort of thing. Yeah, and creating an effortless lifestyle around it.
That's totally perfect. Sounds great.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. Yeah, and then this Facebook page, it's called the Effortless Lifestylers. But that will only be by invite only. I just really want to keep it. Yeah, I just really want to keep it with a certain criteria and profile of women that I really want in the group. But you can always get in touch with me on Facebook, and yeah, Marina Pearson. That's a pretty good way to get in contact with me too.
Cool. Beautiful to talk to you, Marina.
Thank you, Emma.